I'm attorney Phil Jusino, and this is Finding Common Ground here on WLINY, Long Island, New York, the world. I was going to say my co-host, my special guest tonight is Gary Jacobs. Gary is the president of the American for Legal Reform that was founded about 30 years ago, co-founded by Carl and Sarah. Carl was a guest on my show about a month ago. Very interesting. Gary, tell us a little bit about the mission of that organization.
Well, what we do is it really sort of morphed. It used to be more of a thing where we were trying to legal reform, change the system. Right. We did some lobbying, going to Albany. We talk about what needs to be done. Now, what we've done is more twofold. We act as a networking group where people can come together with similar problems, talk, and you get to meet other people, such as yourself.
Right. I went to one of the barbecues.
You go to the barbecue, meet with people, and people say, "Hey, who do you know? Who's the good lawyer? Who's the bad lawyer?" And also because of networking, we also do court watching, where people can get together and say, "Hey, I need help going to court," which is good for many reasons. One, just to have somebody watch, but also you're in court so many years, your family gives up many times. How many times could people take off from work? So it's nice to have other people come in. It's good to talk to other people that understand it, because if you never went through court, you wouldn't understand how horrible it is. And we give educational meetings once a month, the first Tuesday of every month at the Plainview Old Bethpage Library. We have a speaker, and we try to educate everybody
and Curtis
about our mission.
Sliwa spoke the other day.
Actually, last week, Curtis spoke a few times, but last week, Curtis Sliwa came to our meeting. He's always a great guest.
Yeah, I saw the show on Facebook. Now, I got to say, when I went to the barbecue, it was an eclectic mix of people.
Absolutely.
You had attorneys, you had people that the system had been very unfair to. I met, I forget his name, but I met a guest of yours who had done many years in jail, tall guy.
Okay, Anthony DePippo.
Right, for a crime he didn't commit. John Juke's mother was there.
Right.
So a very eclectic mix of people. How would you describe, if you can, how would you describe your membership?
Well, we're all over the board, but it's funny that, in fact, I commented at the barbecue how many attorneys were there this year. And I think we had 13 attorneys, you being one of them, and we do bash attorneys a lot, Phil.
You do,
because
That's I want to be on the good side of you.
many of them deserve it, and you probably don't want to be on Americans for Legal Reform's bad side. We publish a newsletter every month asking for information about attorneys, because sometimes you realize that what happened to you by an attorney happened to other people. But so we have people who were wrongfully convicted who want criminal change. A lot of people in family law, of course, that have had problems. We get a lot of them. But we have attorneys. Listen, you're an attorney. You know the system's not perfect.
Right.
And so there's a lot of attorneys who say, you know what? I know it's not right. Maybe because they went through it. Because I think it's hard for everybody to see the forest through the trees. And you have that gift. Luckily, you haven't been through the system with a divorce personally.
No, I have not. Thank God.
But thank God, knock wood. But you understand. But not everybody can. So to me, that we had a lot of attorneys shows that people do respect our organization. And when we get behind somebody who was treated unfairly by the system, we get behind them financially. We give them, and we get by them 100%. And we win almost every time. I don't want to jinx myself, but and I say win. When I say win, that just means the right thing happened.
Right.
We don't try to get something that shouldn't happen to happen. We wouldn't even take it. If we get behind it, we did our research, and the person that we're behind had an injustice done to them.
Now, is it fair to say that you focus on, let's say, family court or divorce court? When I say divorce court, it's Supreme Court, the divorce part.
Yeah, we call it family, but yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I would say that we definitely, not on purpose, but the founder, as you mentioned, Carl, he got involved because he had a horrible divorce about 30 years. And, he talked about that. Right. So that's why he got involved. That's why I'm involved, because I'm passionate about it. I was never in prison and wrongfully convicted of a crime. So, although now that I've met these people, how could I not help people that have been wrongfully convicted?
Sure.
And that's become a bigger part due to Jeffrey Deskovic, the Deskovic Foundation, who you know, and you've had an LAOI many times. So, and he's also opened my eyes to the injustices, and listening to your show about Brady violation. I didn't even know what a Brady violation was.
I was talking to somebody about that, and when Frank Vetro and I started talking about that, we used to do 103.9 FM.
Right.
And we would do Brady violations. People would be like, is that Tom Brady?
Exactly.
They didn't know what that was.
I had no idea what it was myself.
Now, if you pick up the paper or you read the news, you see that a Suffolk DA lost his job because of Brady violations. A Nassau DA lost her job because of Brady. You see it in the papers on these murder cases where judges really don't want to toss the case, but you got to do something.
You got to follow the law.
It's easier in a drug case. You say, okay, we'll toss it, but when someone's been murdered or raped, the prosecutor's got to follow the rules.
Right.
And that's a problem. Most do, but it only takes a few not to. And if you're the one who's sitting in a jail cell because your prosecutor didn't do the right thing, it matters.
1% too much, because that's 1 in 100 people who could be in jail for something that they didn't do.
Let me say, Lauren Jusino, Jolene Gibbs, Elisa Jusino Calla are watching. Lisa's my sister. She's a good attorney.
Yes, she is.
A very good attorney. Yeah. I heard a rumor that you were a big fan of family court. Is that true?
Not a fan at all. Not a fan at all. You know, I mean, I'd love to abolish it and take a wrecking ball and listen. We need some type of, I don't know if called family court. There needs to be something.
Of course you do.
But it's grown to this behemoth business. I always say when I go to shopping centers now, there's plenty of parking spots. Everybody goes online. Business isn't good. A lot of restaurants don't do well. I go to offices, you know, like your parking lot here on a regular day. It's not packed anymore. But I go to the courthouse, and every day of the week, the parking lot's packed. I always say, business is good today. You can't even find a parking spot there.
It is.
So there's something wrong. That building, what's the nicest building on Long Island? The federal courthouse?
Right next door.
Then right next door, we have a beautiful view.
Right.
They have a pond, so it just got big.
Shaped like New York. Did you know that?
No, I didn't know that.
The pond is shaped like New York State.
Really?
It is.
You learn something every day. But it is, it's too big. There's something wrong when you have this built, because you have to feed the monster. You have to feed the beast. All the court officers need to be paid. The building, if all of a sudden tomorrow we waved the wand and we fixed the system and we went to shared parenting, and nobody's in court anymore,
and a lot of people
are out of a job.
Mm-hmm. Now, when I started practicing, 1989, I was an assistant DA. We were in the Dennison building,
right?
And then I started doing family court. Much smaller. You didn't have as many judges. I know the county has grown, but the system has grown.
The system, exactly.
Very big. Now, let me ask you this, and this is important. Give me your constructive assessment of Suffolk County Family Court.
Well, the problem is, everybody knows the saying, follow the money. And that really is the problem here, is the money. The biggest problem is that people think that you're going in there and there's no incentive. Like I went in, I said, justice will prevail. Well, what's justice? Justice to me may not be justice to my ex-wife. Yeah. So sometimes justice is blurry. But to me, I think justice is both parents sharing their children.
And it's often that way, Gary.
Well, in a settlement, but I think if you go through a trial, one parent's going to win and one parent's going to lose.
Right.
And a lot of people know that most of the time, the woman's going to win custody, so they don't want to settle because listen, everybody tells me that the mother always wins custody, and you know as well as I do, it's not always true anymore.
That's not always true.
It's becoming more and more. And so people go into it going, I'm not going to lose. Everybody thinks they're a great mother, right? I mean, I doubt anybody's going to go to court and think that they're a bad mother unless maybe they got DWIs. So they're going in there thinking they're going to win. But then sometimes they find out that they don't win. And the court, to me, we need a presumption of shared parenting. The courts, they stoke the fire.
Well, look, a judge will tell you, and I hear this all the time, I've been doing this 28, 29 years. A judge will say, if you want joint custody, settle.
Right.
If you don't settle, I'm going to make a decision, they say, and it's not going to be joint custody. The only time you'd see it is if, let's say, parties are separated for 5 years and they've been doing a joint custody.
Right.
A judge might do it, but you're right. If it's not, if it's a trial, they're going to give custody to one party and the other party will have a parenting schedule.
Right. But the thing is, because there's money involved, if you took the money off the table, people would agree to shared parenting. And people say all the time, it's not about the money, it's about the money. If you went into the parents and the judge said, hey, listen, no matter who wins today, I'm not giving a big child support. It's going to be maybe $200 or $300, and you guys go earn your own living. Everybody would settle.
Well, look, I'm going to say this. In some cases where the incomes are close, it's okay. Mm-hmm. But what do you do if you have a guy who's making $150,000 and a woman making $25,000?
I don't think so. I think if you have shared custody, there should be some help. If there's a big disparity, there certainly should be some help. But somebody makes $100,000 on Long Island, you just can't afford.
Right, but if someone makes 25, she's going to need help.
She's going to need some, but not this. To me, the formula is not good. The formula doesn't work for long. Maybe it works other places, but this set formula of whatever it was at 18, 20,
17, 25, 29, and so on.
It doesn't work for Long Islanders because if somebody's making $100,000 a year, and now you have 3 kids. Where is this guy he's going to be left with $20,000, $30,000 a year to rent the Fairfield apartments.
But from the woman's side, she's going to say, that's not even enough. to afford.
But because they got banged into their head that the standard of living shouldn't change. I don't know how this came. Listen, I would love if nobody's standard of living changed.
That's a
but
consideration.
unfortunately,
it's not the only factor.
But people, you hear them, I don't want to have to sell the house because of my kids. If I'm married and I'm in a house and I lose my job, I'm going to lose my house and may have to downsize. Many people have to downsize. So, I think you have to look at the whole system, but to set a hard number, it doesn't work.
Well, the reason they do that is for fairness.
But it ends up, I think it doesn't work though.
I'll give you an example. Maintenance for years was all over the place.
Right.
Before that formula came in.
Right.
Whether you liked the formula or not.
Right.
There was, if you had one particular judge, if you had one particular judge, they didn't like maintenance as much. You had another judge, it was a windfall.
Right.
So they changed the law a number of years ago with that formula. In fact, I did a little calculation. I just want to give you an idea of something. If the husband is making $100,000 and the wife is making $25,000 with 2 kids, the husband would have to pay the wife $2,718
a month.
A month.
That's insane.
$2,700.
Tell that wife to get a job.
That's according to the well. That's what she's making 25.
But let me ask you this: how many times do we hear that they imputed income? Well, but they don't do it so quick on that. I've heard them impute a little bit.
They don't impute as much as
but
they
don't do it like they do for the father. And isn't this equal? We're equal rights. We're in the era of equal rights. Yes, there's a disparity in pay between men and women, but it's not huge anymore. I don't know what you probably know better than me, but the gap is huge. It's not like women make
it's a case by case basis.
Right, but again, you're talking case by case. But then how can you use a formula?
They do that because if they didn't do that, it would be the luck of the draw.
It may be the lesser of two evil.
What judge you got?
I understand.
Courts
it's a problem.
can still deviate from that.
Yeah, but they think they take the lazy route out.
Well, if you go to family
judges.
court, most of the time it's a calculator that if you're on the books.
Right.
The trick is when a guy's self-employed or when he's making money.
It's a trick, but sometimes it's true.
But I'm saying it's harder to determine.
It is harder, but sometimes it gets used against the person who owns their own business because they automatically think they're hiding money.
Well, look, to the wife he's making $1 million. To the guy he's making 25.
And he's hiding money in a foreign account because he always had cash.
The truth is probably somewhere in the middle.
Yeah.
And that's what a judge, and that's good attorneys saying, wait a minute, this guy's making 25, he's driving a BMW.
Right.
They go on vacations to Mexico. He's got to be making more money.
Right.
And that's what a judge is for.
Right.
And they come up with that. So what would some of the things be if you were king for a day? And they said, what can you do? Let's focus on family court.
Okay.
There's also divorce court, family court. What are some of the things you would implement to make it better?
All right, the first thing would be prosecute perjury. It has to become criminal. If you commit perjury and it's proven, you have to prosecute. Because
and you never see that.
This is my king of the day, but right now everybody lies in court. The judges know that everybody lies, and it's become so normal that everybody lies that it's just a free-for-all in the court. You can't believe anything anybody says in court. I don't believe in putting anybody in jail for a divorce. And I know a lot of people disagree with that. But the way I look at it is if you wouldn't go after the person when they were married, you shouldn't go after them when they're divorced.
What about a deadbeat dad?
Too bad. What happens to the person who's married? If the person's married and the husband says, you know what, I don't want to work anymore, I'm going to go on welfare. Does the government go into that person's house and say, get up and work, I'm imputing you at $100,000 or you're going to jail? No, it's a fact of life. They don't, but the bank
comes and takes the house if they don't pay.
Okay, well that's a separate story, but I'm talking putting somebody in jail because they don't make what the judge thinks. What happens if the person goes to medical school and says, you know what, I just want to be a righteous person and I want to help welfare people and I want to make $30,000 a year. If you're in divorce court, the judge will come in and go, no, I'm imputing you with $200,000.
Look at what you made through.
You're a lawyer. You should be making $200,000. Why are you only making $20,000? But if you're married, everybody would say, wow, what a mensch this guy is. He's working
but
for
I'll give you a scenario.
Money.
Guy's making good money, has 3 kids. Wife has custody or joint, whatever you want to call it.
Right.
What do you do with a guy that refuses? Now, not that he can't, but a guy that could refuse.
I still don't like the idea.
If you take jail off the table, you're basically saying to a guy, there's no consequence.
See, the way I look at it is it's an innate behavior for, and I'm talking generalities because there's always going to be the exception, just like we have killers, there's always bad people.
Sure.
But for the most part, it's an innate behavior that men especially, but women in a different way, but men want to provide for their family. And I got to tell you,
not all do, Gary,
But if you're seeing your kid and you have a good relationship and you're not getting locked up by false arrests all the time, most do. But yes, there are going to be some that do, but I just don't, you know what, if they don't, then so be it. Let the woman go out, nothing. Let the woman go out and get a job and the kids will figure it out.
And she gets a job, let's say, and she makes $30,000 a year because maybe she doesn't even have a college degree.
Yeah, life's not fair.
The kids are going to suffer.
Kids suffer in marriages. What happens to the husband who gets locked up because he commits a crime? The kid's going to suffer. The father's in jail.
Absolutely.
He committed. Kids suffer. Listen, the world is not perfect, and I just don't like the government getting involved. To me, all of a sudden you get divorced, and now the government's involved in what job you do, where you work, how much money you make.
I got to say this, though. I've been doing this a long time, and do you know how many times I've seen the guys say, I don't have the money, Judge. Those handcuffs are rattled, and the money comes forward. I've seen it many times. But Ted Fogg, try a little. Okay. Front and
I thought you said I look good in magenta.
Ed Vilbig said this is the best show on the internet. I like that, Ed.
Well, I agree with that.
I didn't pay him to say that.
I agree with that on that. Yeah, no, listen, there's always going to be some, but I think if the woman, I'm going to use the wife, if the wife knows that the husband, it's up to him to pay, they will do more to keep the relationship going. To me, the most important thing is having both parents in the children's lives. That's number one.
I agree.
And even, let's just say the guy doesn't pay, but he's seeing the kid. Do you put him in jail for 6 months? And now he doesn't see the kid? Now the kid's embarrassed that their father went to jail. He's probably never going to get another good job because he's lost his license. He's in debt the rest of his life. He's depressed. He probably wants to kill the mother.
Right. Let me just say this. The law in New York is, if there's a violation, someone files a violation, dad's not paying. The court has to make a determination. Is it a willful violation or a non-willful? If it's non-willful, let's say it's a guy who's hit by a truck, or he's a salesman and he's not doing very well, he's not going to jail. There could be a judgment,
well,
but if it's willful, and it's a high standard.
Yeah, I think some judges, we know which ones.
Guys are not going to jail every day. It happens sometimes, but in my long career, it hasn't happened. We have here Joe. So a person doesn't pay child support and the other parent doesn't let them see the kid. Well, the courts will always say they're two separate issues.
But they don't enforce. That's another sore spot, because if you want to go ahead and enforce it, then they'll tell you, you don't go to jail for money, we don't have debtor's prison, you're going in jail for violating an order. But in that same order, it has a parenting schedule, and the woman doesn't let the father see the kids. They don't enforce that so vigorously. But it should be the same, right? Shouldn't they go to jail for 6 months then?
Or lose custody?
Or lose custody. But
that's parental alienation, which is our next topic.
That's a big topic for me, but we don't. Right. The reason it's so bad is because the courts in Suffolk County, and I'll do more in Suffolk, a little bit in Nassau, it seems to get better as you get to the city, but of course, every judge has their own personality. But out here on Long Island, they don't really care that much about alienation. To me, they encourage it, because if they let it go on so long, let me tell you, if the word got out that in Suffolk County, if you alienate your kid, and it's proven that you're alienated, you lose in custody and you're paying child support, it would stop.
This is Jennifer Keller. Gary is a hero. He should have a cape on instead of a sports jacket. He doesn't look good in the cape. Let him keep the sports jacket on.
I don't look good. How do you know I don't look good in the cape?
The guy in the cape, the attorney. Who's the guy in the cape? Your attorney with the cape?
But you should wear one to court one day. I wonder how that would look. Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe a mask. If I wear a cape, I'm wearing a mask.
Yeah.
Now, what I wanted to talk about, because I know this is a very, very big topic near and dear to your heart, parental alienation.
Right. Well, that's what got me involved in the whole movement, is parental alienation. To me, it's criminal in my mind. That should be right up there with, it's child abuse. And the problem is, it goes on, mother, father, mother. It goes on, and a lot of judges say it goes on all the time, and it does to some extent go on in every case. But there's different levels of it. But to me, that should be more important than the money. If you're going to put people in jail for money, then damn sure you should put them in jail for withholding the kid.
Or strip them of custody and give the kid to the other
Well, that would be the first. That should be immediate, but they don't do it here. Unless you have the money to pay a lawyer like you.
I will agree with you that it doesn't happen as often as it should happen. It happens, but it's rare.
How does it happen? When they hire you and they give you a ton of money, because how many court appearances would it take you to get this? You'd probably be in court 15 times. Well, they'd have to hire a forensic.
More likely you need a trial.
So you'd be in court for, it's a lot of money. You're talking, and the way the trial, what they do is, it's not fair either, because another problem in Suffolk County is trials. This thing where you go to court and you do a trial for 1 hour a day.
No, that's horrible.
It's not fair to, I say, listen, I don't like all attorneys, but it's not fair to the attorney. I don't know how you guys do it.
How does the judge remember anything?
They don't remember, because he has so many cases. To you, the guy's like, doesn't the judge remember I said this?
And if you're the last one to go, they're going to remember you better than maybe the first one, which is 6 or 7 months ago.
The attorneys want to end it on the right,
like
the right day,
so
you do it. But I have trials that go, I just helped a guy, his trial went on for just over 2 years, and the judge made so many errors in his decision, and the guy's, how could he not remember this? Well, you remember it because it's your case.
Sure.
But how does even a lawyer?
But even the attorney, sometimes you come in, you got to look at who's on the stand.
Right, it's
2 months ago.
But even mentally, like I know when you go in for a trial, you have to psych yourself up, and your adrenaline's going. And then all of a sudden, I take a break for lunch. I'm going to go in for another 20 minutes.
See, what gets
hard.
me is this. You know I do criminal work.
Right.
When you have a jury trial, that's the best thing.
Best thing.
They bend over backwards. They kick attorneys out of the courtroom. Hey, the jury's coming in. Get out.
Right.
We'll see you after lunch.
Right.
In a family court or divorce, do you know how many times I come in there with my boxes and I'm walking, in the elevator, I get out of the elevator and I see another attorney there in front of the courtroom with 3 boxes.
Like, oh,
and
no.
I say to him, what are you doing? He's like, I'm on trial. And then someone else says, I'm on trial.
Right.
So they
And they all are.
They triple book.
Right.
And it's even worse in Nassau County. I'm not
Is
going
it?
back there so I can speak.
Uh-huh.
You go there one time and for like a whole year, you're going on trial.
Right.
You get this, sorry, can't do it today.
Right.
And then you got to update. Everything is updating. And then they have trial books in Nassau, so you got to update your client's statements of net worth. You got to update.
Yeah, it's not fair.
More money.
And even how does a person? Well, I think it's on purpose, Phil.
Justice delayed is justice denied.
Right. And not only that, I believe they do it on purpose. They try to litigate you into submission. Because the judges, in my opinion, know if we keep you in here long enough,
You'll settle.
you're going to do something stupid. Well, you're going to settle because you're going to run out of money. so then that's the best way to settle. Everybody runs out of money. You may lose your job. Because you can't go to, how do you take off 20 years, 20 days to go to court? You can't, people don't understand this. So all around, to me, it would have to be, listen, you maybe not, the full day, but had this stuff in Suffolk County, everybody come in at 9 o'clock. You're on the calendar at 9 o'clock. So I think some judges do 10 now. But everybody gets there at 9. The judge is probably still in bed at 9 o'clock because you see them walking in later in the day. They don't start at 9 o'clock. But in a criminal case.
Started at 8, remember?
No, I don't remember. But that, I was in Nassau in criminal court, and I had a Judge St. George. And everybody knew that when he set that time, you better be there, or he's going to start without you. You have to be there at that time.
Not a lot of judges do that. Frank,
Right.
the one I just said, was one of the ones where if you were there at 8:05, your petition may have been dismissed.
Right.
Well, he may have.
But then you knew it, right? So you were there,
and that's
you
why all the
respect that.
attorneys are in that room,
Right.
Because you knew the rules.
Right. The rules here are so scattered because every judge has different rules. Some don't even walk in on the bench till 10 or 11. Some don't come out on the bench. It's a disaster. I actually believe in jury trials too. To me, first you have to have cameras in the courtroom. To me, that's a must because the demeanor of some judges, Judge Cheryl Joseph, this is a nasty, nasty judge, in my opinion. She screams, she yells, but the transcripts don't show her demeanor and the way she talks down to people, and not only to litigants, but to attorneys. I think if people saw, I know on the internet now, sometimes you'll see in Florida, you'll see a judge who says something crazy.
Right.
Where was the one where the judge said something so bad and the person killed themselves the next day? It was just recently. And the judge got removed from the bench. We would have a lot less judges here. There should be civility because people are in a horrible time in their life, whether you're right. And there's some judges who I don't agree with. I mean, Judge Lease, I don't always agree with his decisions. Believe me, I don't. But I will say he treats people, for the most part, with respect. And that's a big part.
I got to say this, most of the judges that I've appeared before, even if I disagree with them, and like you said, Judge Joseph, I've had good experiences before her.
Right.
But not just her, I'm saying I've seen judges, let's say things or do things that I'm not happy about, but there's not a lot I can do. I can appeal it if I don't like the decision, but that's about it. But I think you're right. Civility is key. That's why I like
What about
judges.
juries, Phil? Do you think we should have juries?
I think it might bog down the system. If you have a divorce, you know how many divorce trials go on?
But they would go faster. Like you said in criminal court.
I don't know if I'm ready to make that step, but I know in criminal it's different because it's liberties at stake.
But how do you put somebody in jail in this country for 6 months with one person's decision? How do you do that? That's not fair. The person cannot like white people, not like black people, not like men. Everybody has their own justice.
Let me just, so the viewers understand. In a violation, we were talking about that before, the support magistrate only makes a recommendation for jail.
And then the other guy rubber stamps it.
And then it goes before judge. Well, I see a lot what happens is the judge will say, all right, let's say you owe 25 grand. The judge might say, what can you come up with? And the person says, I can come up with 10. All right, come up with 10,000, you don't go to jail. That's what they call a purge amount. So there are some judges that don't want to put somebody in jail, and there are others that are more likely to do that.
But is that fair? If one judge is one way and one judge is the other way, that's not fair.
No, Alan Finkel, who's an attorney, if parents can't figure out the parenting arrangement for the children, that's the reason a judge gets involved. And basically, they get what they ask for. See, many times I always tell a client, try to settle it because you have a say somewhat. If you throw it in the lap of a judge, and a lot of these judges, you've heard it, look, you want a guy, you want me to decide, I don't really know you. And they'll come up with something that neither party likes. Whereas if you compromise, you say, look, I'm not happy, but at least I'm getting the Tuesday that I want.
But the problem is the judges set the tone. So if the judge basically tells the parties or the attorneys, listen, this guy's not getting custody, how's he going to negotiate fairly? And that happens a lot. Judges go in the back room and they say, look, I'm leaning towards this. You know, you guy's not going to get custody. So you go out and you tell your guy, hey, Gary, look, the judge is not going to give you custody. You got to settle. But the other attorney heard it too. Right. That's not the fair settlement is when you don't both have a risk. Because you don't know what's going to happen.
But I will say
and then you should settle. I agree.
When I conference in the back, and you know most of the time the parties are not in the back.
Right.
Sometimes, well not sometimes, I like to have an idea, a window into the mind of the judge. Because rather than my client spending a ton of money, if I know that the judge is leaning toward the other party, and I don't have a smoking gun, let's say, I might say to the client, look, you can pay me a lot of money, and at the end of the day, you know what? She's probably going to win custody.
Right.
And if it's in my client's favor, the other attorney, like you said, is hearing that.
He's hearing,
so you might be able to settle the case.
Yeah, but it's not a fair, to me a fair settlement is going in when both parties have a lot to lose. If the judge would say, look, if you don't really know which way the judge is going, and that judge has a reputation of giving fathers and mothers custody equally, let me tell you, people would settle. We all know which judges in Suffolk County you could go to and say, hey, you got no chance as a guy of getting custody. And then you got the other judges that say, you know what, if you go to court and fight and you're the father, you know what, I got a shot of getting you custody. You know which ones you can do it with. So that makes it hard to settle. But if you have a judge who they say, hey, this judge is very fair and there's a 50-50 chance you're going to win, I think most people would settle, wouldn't they? But I wouldn't want to risk losing my kids.
The other element, though, is an attorney for the child. He used to be called law guardian.
Ugh.
They're in that room, too.
I'm glad I don't have my blood pressure watch on, Phil.
I know. We could have a 2-hour show about that, a 3-hour show. But with the attorney for the child in that room, often the judge says, okay, did you speak to the kids? And assuming they're 10, 11, whatever, you know what they're going to say? They're going to say, my recommendation is to dad. Or my recommendation is to mom. That's another thing you need to know.
Yeah, but it's a problem, though, because how do they know that? But how do they know that,
Because
Phil?
they spoke to the kid.
And what did they say to the kid? Who do you want to have custody?
Well, I would hope they wouldn't just be that.
Well, not that, but they pretty much ask him, listen, if you had a choice, who would you want to, they have to know, they have to tell the judge.
Don't kids have rights?
I don't think they should be involved. I think
Depends on the age. You're not going to ask a 6-year-old, who do you want to live with?
But even at 12, what kind of burden do you put on the kid that the law guardian says to the kid, who do you want to live with? And then, I want to live with mom. And it gets back, obviously, to the father. And now he's hurt.
But there's a better way to do it.
It's a burden to put on the kids.
I was a law
How about
guardian.
no custody? Shared custody, 50-50.
I was a law guardian for 5 years. And when I had an older kid, if you had a 15, 16, you say, where do you want to live? But let's say you had a 10-year-old. And you're right, the burden is great, because then the kid feels guilty.
Of course, but he knows.
But what I would do is I would say things like, what is it like when you're with mom? What is it like when you're with dad? What do you do on your free time? When it's time to do homework, what does mom see? So I'm getting information from the child without saying,
but why not have a professional? You're an attorney. You're great at law.
They could do that.
But why not just have it? That I would agree with.
They do forensic, but it gets expensive, Gary.
I know, well, we're paying all these law guardians. Why not pay a forensic?
You get somebody like Barbara Burkhardt or some of the others. They get expensive. I'm not saying they don't do a good job. They get expensive.
It does.
5, 10 grand.
But I would rather. That's true. That's why if we take all this out and go in with the presumption of shared parenting. As a presumption, we take a lot of this off the table.
But even if you do that, each party still could say, you know what, that father is a drug addict, or that mother is an alcoholic. But you're still going to have litigation.
You're still going to have some, but it's going to be way cut down because the burden would have to be high to prove. Listen, I don't think a person who's an alcoholic should have 50% custody. Believe it or not, I believe they should still see. They shouldn't drive with the kid for sure. I still think they should see the kid. I think it's better to have a bad parent than no parent.
Right, but you put limitations on it.
Of course, you wouldn't want your kid getting in a car with somebody who we know is on heroin. You'd be like, nah, I'm not going to do that. But I think but you have to keep the kids with the family and both parents as much as, listen, they do it in Sweden. You would be out of business in Sweden. There's almost no family law there. You don't even go to court when you get divorced. You send in the paperwork, I'm divorced, we're sharing custody.
But what do you do, again, what do you do with a situation where one parent says, you know what? That other parent is not fit enough. And it happens. We know there are parents out there that are not competent.
But see, well, I think that's got to be such a high bar because, for example, some judges who are religious would say, that's great that this person brings their kid to church every day. Then you get another judge who's an atheist. Then what are you wasting his kid's time bringing him to church every day? Listen, 20 years ago, people used to spank their kids. And that was great. They were a good disciplinarian.
Now
you spank the kids and you're not a good father. So who's to say, and listen, we know many kids who turned out good that were spanked, right? They ended up being very successful and well-adjusted people. So I don't know, it scares me that the government would determine what is, or a judge, the government, what is a good parent? I don't know
That's
what's
who we entrust to do that.
but I don't like that. I say unless they're danger to the kid, because even dangerous parents, kids learn from. We know many, kids who we grew up with, their parents were assholes, right? They were just nasty,
Yes.
or they were, I knew parents who were drunks. They used to sit around drinking, smoking with the kids. The kids turned out good. Some of them said, I don't want to be like that, so I'm not going to even drink.
Maybe they had another parent that wasn't doing those things.
Right, but to me it all seems to work. It works out, and the bar should be so high to take away our constitutional right to see our children. I mean, you believe this, that you go to court and they could tell you you can't have contact with your kid on Monday through Wednesday. It's my kid. That's crazy.
Yeah, but they got to come up with a schedule.
See, I think the parents I think the parents have to work it out. And like I said,
You're right, but sometimes they can't, Gary.
Well, sometimes but you know what? You find out which parent can't, and that parent gets penalized. Like I said, in Sweden, I have a very good friend, and he's divorced, so I see how it works. And he gives his wife a little bit of money because he makes more money than her. Actually, the government gives like $200 a month for each kid, and then the other parent gives, in Sweden, gives a little bit of money. And he says to me one day, his wife was doing something. I said, she's going to give you the kid? He said, well, of course. I said, but it's not your agreed upon time. He says, no, but I make more money, and she wants me to buy all the clothes for the kid, so she's not going to do anything to upset me taking the kids on vacation. But I think the mentality of fighting, and of course lawyers fight. I mean, that's what you guys do. You're supposed to. You're an advocate.
Some more than others.
But you're an advocate for listen, if you're going in there, you're going to war. You're not going in there to be a nice guy.
I try to settle every case if I can.
But if you go to trial, you're fighting. I've seen you.
Absolutely.
You're going in to win. That's your job. You would be sued for malpractice if you went in, he's a nice guy, whatever it is. You're paid to go in and fight.
You're in or you're out.
You're in or you're out, exactly. But that system now went to the parties who used to love each other. And you know how attorneys go, and I don't know if you do this, but they'll say, don't talk to your ex. Everything goes through me from now on.
Unless it's order protection, I don't say that, generally speaking.
But a lot of lawyers, say this, don't talk to
them. Just like they say, don't get a job if you're and I'm not one of those.
Right.
Because they can impute the income,
right?
And it makes you look bad if you're sitting around doing nothing.
And the lawyer and the judges know it. Now some don't care,
right.
But many judges, come on, what do you mean you didn't get a job? Your kids are older,
and that's what they should do.
And but they do. Listen, I had in my case, my wife says I can't get a job, I can't get a job, I can't get a job. A month after we get divorced, sign the papers, her income doubles.
Right. I wanted to go over quickly. In New York State, the best interest analysis is what is followed. These are supposed to be followed, and that's a balancing the ability of each parent to provide for the needs of the child. I just want to read a couple of very quickly. Stability, who's the primary caregiver? If there's a custody battle and one parent, whether the father or the mother, was taking care of the kid almost exclusively, that person would have the upper hand. Abuse, neglect, abandonment. Child's preference, that's an issue. If you have a 16-year-old, the kid will probably live where they want to live. But this is one of the most important things, and you'll agree with me 100%. Can the custodial parent foster an excellent relationship with the other parent? Right. That is one of the most important considerations.
Should be.
And it should be.
I mean, I think that's the young case, young versus young, that says that if you interfere or make false allegations, you're not a fit parent. Yeah. But many times that doesn't happen here. How many false allegations do you deal with?
I deal with it a lot, but unfortunately, a lot of times there's no consequences.
Do they change? Right? Do they change custody?
No. Sadly, I've seen in my many-year career a number of times where a judge has stripped somebody of custody. Doesn't happen often. No, because a lot of times the judge says, "I don't want to punish the kid."
Right.
That's what they do.
Right.
They say that, and I believe them. Yeah. They don't want to.
Well, it's also when you yank the kid out of the house. From the judge's point of view, I do get it, but you have to start off the right way with the shit. To me, if you start off with the shit, listen, I had shared parenting. It worked well. 50. As much you can't do. The kids are humans. But if there's no incentive, because what happens is now there's an incentive to keep the kid away. Because you can even go back to court. I've had cases where the father's supposed to see the kid on Wednesday for dinner and every other weekend. Well, then the mother alienates the kid, goes back to court and says, well, this is based on him seeing the kid Wednesday for dinner and every other weekend. He doesn't see the kid anymore, so I want more child support. I have a case where the mother moved to Nassau County. There was no child support, basically 50-50. The mother moves to Nassau County. So the woman, now he doesn't see the kids as much. She moved 45 minutes away. And
there's got to be an accommodation.
Should he have to now pay child support? You created a situation. But the courts, it's great, because there's an incentive for the judges, which people don't realize. There's an incentive for the judges to collect more money in child support. Do you know they keep a list, Phil? I've discussed with you. I think
you mentioned to me. I don't know that for a fact.
You don't know it for a fact, right. and I've heard this from a pretty reliable source, that they keep a spreadsheet of how much money every judge collects in child support. Well, that's like a quota for tickets, which we all don't like.
That's what it
To me,
sounds
the
like.
judge is supposed to be have no incentive to collect more money.
They shouldn't
But
be
what do
on
you find? The judges who screw more people and collect more money rise to the top in the court system here. The judges who are very civil, and we know a lot of them who just treat everybody like a human being, they don't move up in the system so good. A lot of times they get pushed out of the, because nobody wants to be in family court. I mean, that's a horrible,
Very
I think
stressful.
that's a horrible
I
place
think the
to
judge's
be.
life expectancy, I'm serious, I heard something where a judge's life expectancy, let's say a long-standing family court judge, a lot of
Really?
stress.
Oh, it is.
You're
I
making
agree.
tough decisions. See, as an advocate, I look at it this way. If I was a judge, you're making decisions that are going to profoundly affect that child or children. As an advocate, all I have to do is take the gloves off,
the best.
go in and fight for my client, and let the chips fall where they
I'd
may.
like to think the judge does take that seriously, but I think sometimes they become immune to it. And like a doctor, someone has to remove themselves from people dying, or a criminal person, somebody goes to jail that's innocent, and you guy's innocent. How do you sleep at night? I think the judges a lot of times have to remove themselves because they don't seem to care about what they're doing to the families. They just seem to lose. First of all, a lot of them are narcissists, which is why they become judges. A lot of times people want, Your Honor, I'm up on a bench. So a lot of the judges
And
have
politicians too.
politicians. Well, it is true. It is true. A lot of that doesn't make him a bad politician. I mean, listen, many people would say Trump is a narcissist. I don't care if he does a good job. If my brain
I wouldn't disagree with that.
If my brain surgeon is a jerk and he's a narcissist and he's a mean person,
But he's the best brain
surgeon, I'm going to use him. So okay, judges could be narcissists, but to me, being a judge, you have to be sensitive to be a good judge. And there's a big difference between which judges are sensitive and.
I want to read, Jolene said, it happened to me and everybody believed him, so I settled, but 3 years later I got back. I just want to very quickly talk about Jolene. On her case, well, I don't really get into the details, but the judge made a decision that he felt was the best for the children, even against the law guardian. So the law guardian said one thing, and the judge said something. Basically, education is paramount.
Right.
And he made a decision that gave her 2 kids.
Right.
So that was Judge Cheng.
Okay.
He did the right thing, even though the law guardian was saying the kids want this.
Right.
He
But
did the
actually,
right
that law
thing.
guardian, I think, at least did what they believe in. Many of them don't even do what they believe in. They do what the judge wants them
but
to
you
do.
know how it is if your kids, if your clients are older than 7 years old,
Right.
you're supposed to be their mouthpiece. It
Right.
used to be different.
Right, exactly. I don't know. I think I like the other way better, but on the other way, I don't. You're supposed to advocate for the kids, but how do you know what's
Right.
in their best interest?
But I've seen law
But
guardians.
why do we need them, Phil?
Well, because they're the voice of the child. Because I don't get to talk to the kids. The other attorney doesn't get to talk to the kids.
But I don't know. To me, you're giving a kid an attorney. A 10-year-old kid's learning to get an attorney, and I've seen
Who's
it.
going to fight for that child?
Well, I would think that. Well, the court's supposed to do. You read the thing. Do what's in their best interest.
But the court doesn't get to talk to the kid until after,
Well, they
generally
can
after a trial.
but they can talk to them, right? They can bring them in behind
They
the
could.
chambers if they want.
It's rare before the trial.
Okay.
They usually do it after.
Okay.
Because they want to hear all the facts.
But I still think they then hire an expert to go in to me,
Where's the money going to come from?
well,
Sometimes
the law guardians in family court are
See,
getting paid by the state.
Right. And in family
Or the
court,
county, I don't
sometimes
know
you
who
can get
pays for them.
forensics that, or like a 1034. But you're in divorce court. Guess what?
Right,
You're paying for that.
Right.
And sometimes there's not enough money.
It scares me that they get too much power, law guardians. A lot of times they're unsuccessful attorneys, a lot of times, and they're not capable attorneys, and they're going in there. And a lot of times what they do is they want to make the judge happy so they get more reappointments. It's supposed to be random or some system.
There's a list.
But
There's a list.
if the guy's standing in the courtroom, I call them ambulance chasers, and the judge, what judge has their law guardians that they like, that they're comfortable working with. But then with that law guardian, where's their loyalty? A lot of times it's a dual loyalty.
Should be to the child.
It should be, but a lot of times the judge tells them what they want, and they just follow along with what the judge wants. You don't probably see it as much because your personality is, I'm going to do. You're a strong guy. But if you're a guy who's not as strong, and the judge is saying, you can tell. Listen, you all know which way the judge wants to go.
Well, I got to say this, and I won't give the name of the judge. Years ago, the guy's retired years ago. It wasn't friendly. And I had a case where I was an attorney for the child, law guardians we called them, right?
Right.
And the judge basically said, this is what I want your recommendation to be. And I said, I'll make my, and it wasn't that different from the judge, but I said,
Right.
I got to make my recommendation based on what I think is best for my client.
Right.
And I was like late 20s.
Well, that's why you moved up to a powerful lawyer. You're not still a law
Yeah,
guardian.
and they were you know why I got off the panel? I just didn't have the time because my practice started to grow. And if you have too many cases, like I used to go to the kid's house, talk to the parents at the house. A lot of law guardians don't do that.
Right.
And how do you get a sense of the whole
You
story?
you do.
Unless you do that.
But what do you think when the law guardian says, well, I'm your attorney, and here's my business card, and if you get a problem with your parents, call me. That's not good for a kid.
Look,
and that happens.
There are some law
often.
guardians that are fantastic.
Yeah.
And there are some, just like attorneys, just
Right.
like doctors, just like airline pilots.
Right, but can we afford to have a bad law guardian or a bad lawyer?
No.
This is your life.
No.
This is, to me, going back to doctors, you can't afford to have a bad doctor.
No.
It could kill you. This could kill you. People commit suicide, they get depressed, it ruins their life. It could ruin your kid's life. Listen, we're doing something wrong with the system, because look at the jails.
Right.
They're filled up with kids who are raised with one-parent households. 80%, or in the 80s, percentage of kids who are in jail are raised without their father. We're doing something wrong.
Right. But the question is, what do we do about it? Now, a lot of the things you say, I don't disagree with, Gary. I look at it maybe, I think you see sometimes the worst of family
Of course, because
court.
people come to me when they don't come to me and say I had a great experience.
Right. I see the whole gamut. I see the very good, I see the not so good, I see the bad. I had a case one time where a judge, he's not a judge anymore, gave custody right before Christmas to a convicted felon. I lost the hearing, and I shouldn't have. I appealed it. The judge reversed the decision, the appellate court, appellate division in Brooklyn, reversed the decision, didn't even order a new trial, just said no. Custody's going to mom. And it said that the judge did not base his decision on sound logic and reasoning. I went to one of the Matlaw seminars. That was one of the cases.
Really?
Because it slapped the judge down.
Right.
But how many people can afford an appeal? That's the problem.
It's so expensive, especially if we go back to these long trials. This guy that I just
They have
advocated
no money at
for,
the end of it, and how do you appeal?
he had a 40-day trial. He
40?
had 40 days. I think 42 days in Suffolk County. How do you, he can't, and the judge even said at the end, good luck appealing this one, because he knew he can't afford the transcripts, he can't afford the appellate attorney,
Some
he
people
can't afford the
the
printing.
transcripts, and you got to pay.
Right.
It says, the law guardian helped my neighbor's kids. They allowed me to take them rather than put the boys in foster care. The best thing to ever happen to them. I had them for 3 years. I was happy about them. Like I said, you get all kinds of stories.
Right.
Some of the law guardians are very good. They're hands-on. They'll be a fighter for the kid. Others, like you said, will say, "Here's my card. If you have any questions, call me."
Right.
You got to interact
How do
with
you,
your
I mean,
clients.
we're talking about people's lives, just like
agree.
attorneys. I mean, listen, you're one of the good ones, Obviously, I wouldn't be on your show if I didn't think so, and I wouldn't have had you on my show. But there's some bad attorneys, and you don't know it, and people could end up losing a case because their attorney is horrible.
Also,
that's a bad problem.
I believe in being accessible. If anything, I am too accessible. Sometimes on a Sunday night at 10 o'clock, a client's calling me.
Right.
But like a doctor too. And if let's say your kid's not brought home on a Sunday evening, what do you do? I take that call.
Yeah, well,
Even if
I don't
do
recommend
anything
any
immediately.
attorneys who don't take the calls, because that's when people do the stupid thing.
But some don't. They're like, I
Many
don't want
don't.
to hear it on a
Many
weekend.
don't.
I know.
They don't want to. But listen, you have to be a psychiatrist, psychologist, a friend, a mentor.
Right.
If you're not all that, your client's going to go off the deep end, because we don't have it. I was through a divorce. It's horrible. You don't.
Look, there's a lot of hand holding, like you said. It's almost like talking the person off the ledge.
Right.
Like, what do I do? Look,
And many times you probably do have to.
Monday we'll get into court. We'll do what we have to do.
That's all they have to hear sometimes.
You got to stay. Just hear my voice. That's,
Right.
that's
all they have to hear.
The same as with, like, let's say I go to a doctor and they run a test and I'm nervous. Just answer the call. Tell me, maybe tomorrow. Right. Tell me something.
Right. Hey, don't worry. That's how my attorney said. Well, if all you have to say is don't worry about it. We'll deal with it. Then you feel, it's like the stewardess, when the flight attendants, when the flight's getting bumpy, I look at their face to see if they look nervous. If they don't look nervous, I say, okay, the plane's not going down.
If they're in the rumble seat with the,
I'm drinking shots because it's I said, oh man, I better start praying.
About 15 minutes left. What I wanted to talk about next was orders of protection.
Right.
I know, because that's something you and I had talked about on the show. I think we might disagree on a little bit, but let's talk about that. In New York State, very simply, there are two different types of orders of protection. There's a stay away and there's a refrain from. You can get in family court. So if a woman calls the police and the husband slugged her, she can go to criminal court, get the order of protection, or you can go to family court if you have an Article 8 proceeding. Now, I know that when I was on your show, I was on twice, I think it was the last time I was on your show, you had said you didn't believe, let's say, necessarily in resolving it. You felt, do the hearing.
Good. Well, first, I don't think they should be in family court. To me, orders of protection should be criminal.
The law provides for it.
The law does, but I don't think it should be. That should be changed. If somebody did something and you're fearful for your life, go to criminal court.
Right. But I'll tell you, what about this? A woman doesn't want to get her husband arrested, but she wants the order of protection. That could be in a sense.
Why doesn't she want? Isn't order of protection supposed to be when you're fearful?
Right, but what if she
So
doesn't
why not
want-
give the guy? Why don't they give her a gun when she goes in there? If she's truly fearful, and you hold up this piece of paper, that's not going to stop the girl from getting shot. Give her a gun.
But what if she's not totally fearful, but she wants to live in peace?
Come on, then move away and give the guy the kids.
I like the ability for a woman to, or a man, could be a man, to go into family court, get an order of protection without, let's say, the baggage of a criminal case, where someone can lose their job.
Well, the baggage, but what about the positive that you get a speedy trial? Those are some good protections. You were in criminal, as you said.
I'm a former prosecutor.
There's some good protections in criminal court. I would much rather be in criminal court than family court.
I'll give you my answer.
Where would you rather be? If I was charged with a crime, would you rather be in family court with one person, no Brady rules, no discovery?
If you go to family court, you're not charged with a crime.
Okay, but it's just conviction-wise. Forget about what the outcome would be. Where would you think you'd get a fairer shot? In criminal with a jury, where they follow the rules? Or a family court who can do whatever they want because the burden's low?
If it's a misdemeanor, but let's say a guy comes home and he pushes his wife. That's harassment. Yeah. You don't get a jury.
Is that a real crime, though?
I see it all the time.
I know you see it, but I'm saying if you were married, and somebody, pushed somebody. I had a guy who slapped his cell phone out of his wife's hands.
That's a misdemeanor, believe it or not.
But seriously, do you think that guy needs a stay-away order of protection?
If a guy is habitually harassing his wife,
habitually is a separate thing. But I'm talking about they getting in a fight. And he's mad because she got caught cheating, and she picks up the phone to call somebody, and he smacks the phone. You bitch! You cheated on me. That guy's a criminal.
I had a case similar to that, where the phone was knocked out of somebody's hand, and that person who knocked the phone out of the other side's hand got charged with a misdemeanor.
Really?
Absolutely.
That's crazy. But I'm just saying. People argue. How many? And listen, if somebody's abusive. Hell yeah, you shouldn't hit a woman. Woman shouldn't hit a man.
That's right.
But it's so abused, this thing, where people say, he looked at me, my wife said, anytime you do something that annoys me, I'm going to call the police and I'm going to have you arrested. The last time she called on me was because I left laundry in the washing machine. And she said it.
And the police should laugh at it and say, ma'am, don't do that.
Yeah, but she went to court. She got a because it's temporary, of course, ex parte. Right. But to me, that should be a speedy.
Ex parte means one person goes into court, they can give an order of protection.
You don't even know about it.
Right.
You come home and the sheriffs are there. And listen, I understand you have to give them because if there's a true case of abuse, you're not going to tell the person, hey, buddy, I'm going to jail. You're going to get beat up. But to me, in those cases, you should be in court and have your trial within 30 days because your rights to see your kids are going to be taken away. Your right to your house that you own. You're destroying your life.
See, in family court, you said ex parte. So a woman comes in and says, my husband hit me. She can get a temporary order of protection. The attorney for the husband should come in and say, I want a hearing immediately.
But they don't give it. They don't. Even if they do ask.
That's what gets me angry.
And that's a problem.
My guy's out of the house. Even in a criminal court, if he said I want an immediate hearing, you'll get it quicker. But it still could take a little while. Oh, I can't give you a jury trial, for a month. My guy's out of the house, Judge.
And you know what happens? Then it's hard to get back in because it's been going well.
Well, you know what?
The judges are afraid.
If she keeps some kind of order, let's say she keeps a refrain from. I don't know if I want my guy going back into the house. Because it could be a potential felony. She says he knocked me out of the way.
If you do, the person better always have a voice recorder on them. And
who wants to live like that? You're right.
It's a horrible way to live.
Nobody
you have
wants
to protect
live like
yourself.
That. Yeah, let me see. Should there be a statute of limitation of reporting alleged crime with regard to the abuse?
Now we're talking about Kavanaugh.
Well, in criminal law there is.
But it isn't a similar thing with Kavanaugh because the way Kavanaugh, I don't know if the woman, I don't believe he did it, but listen, I'm not there. It scares me that this can be destroyed his life.
35, 36 years.
But here's what bothers me more, because I've been in this position. I've been falsely accused, and you've had many people falsely accused. I was falsely accused of stuff I didn't do, and I went to court for Judge Mary McNulty, and I was pissed off. I was kicked out of my house. I couldn't see my kids. I had no contact for 6 weeks, and I was pissed. Well, now after I'm not getting a trial for the first week, second week, third week, fourth week, fifth, get me in the house. I'm getting pissed. So now I'm in court and I'm pissed. Well, guess what? I could see why she got the order of protection. Look how aggressive you are. In Kavanaugh, you didn't have the temperament. But if you sit back, and did nothing, I look at him. He's guilty. Yeah. He's not even defending himself. He's not mad. He doesn't look like a person who didn't do it.
The thing that got me mad is I know they wanted to handle it with kid gloves. Right. Let her have her say. But if somebody comes out 35, 36 years with no proof. Right. What if another person came out? Do you give that person a microphone and a seat in front of?
And again, that doesn't mean that didn't happen to her. But even if it did, listen, in criminal law, sometimes guilty people go free. And I think you have to err on the side of, look, she has the right to see a therapist and tell her friends about it, but to go out publicly, and I don't even know if she really did want to go public or it took on a mind of its own, that's another, but it destroyed the man's life. Listen, at the end of the day, everybody knows Kavanaugh. Half the people think that he was, assaulter, and half the people think that she was a bad person for bringing it out. And I know I live with this too. I'm sure many people say, hey, maybe Gary did it. He was accused probably 10 times of abuse. Maybe he did it. Even though I was never convicted of it, maybe he did something.
Well, you know what, now to take a political slant, I think independent voters that are, look, the Republicans are going to vote Republican for the most part, Democrats are going to vote Democrat. A lot of the independent voters, and I watch track.
Which is a lot now.
They are so fed up with how the Democrats handle this. Feinstein, you want the FBI? When you got that letter in July, why didn't you do something about it? She didn't. She kept it, and then it leaks. So now it comes out. This guy's defense. How do you, if someone says to you, Gary, when you were in high school, you did this. How the hell do you defend yourself?
It's impossible to defend yourself. And even if he did, listen, all these years went by, he didn't, listen, if he raped her, it's one thing.
And he led an exemplary life.
Right. Even if
he
don't we believe in redemption? I mean, people get out of jail, they serve their time, and they serve their time to society. So even if he did it, you got to say, hey, he did nothing for 30-some. In my opinion, did something for 30. And if there's a chance, I don't even know if this woman wanted to come forward, or like I said, if she was pushed, maybe she believed it. I don't know if she believed it was him or not, but how memories can change. I mean, I don't remember.
But what gets me
my memory changed 30
years
ago.
I would have more respect for this woman if she says, I want to come forward with something that happened to me. Then you send a letter and you hope that it submarines his shot at the Supreme Court because you don't want to come out. You know how dangerous that is?
Scary.
Anybody can say anything.
It's scary, but isn't that what happens in family court? Can anybody say anything? What happens if they lie?
But they got to get on. They got to get their seat in the stand at some point and testify.
But if they, let's say they do. Most cases here, if you don't push hard, these things go on for 2 to 3 months easily, right? If you get an ex parte order protection, easily you could say 2 months.
They can go the whole 6 months with the freaking standing goals.
But it's not uncommon to go 2 months.
No.
So let's say they finally do. First of all, you've seen it many times. They withdraw them right at the end, or they'll settle right at the end. So they never had to go to trial. And if they did go to trial and get up on the stand one day and the judge doesn't believe, nothing happens anyway.
I want to say something. I had a case the other day. I won't talk about the name of the parties. It was Judge McDonough, good judge. And often the DA will say, this is a criminal case now, domestic violence part. The DA, I want an order of protection for the complaining witness. A lot of times they get it. Most of the times they do get it, Gary. I opposed it. I didn't want to go up there and just go along with it. And I said, Judge, these are my reasons. I won't go into it because I don't want to give away who the client it might be. And I said, no, I can't consent, and these are the reasons. That judge did not issue a temporary order of protection.
I give that judge a lot of credit.
Did the right thing.
But most of them, and I almost can't, what would you do if you're a judge and you say, you know what if that one time I don't give the, because there was that case in Nassau years ago, and the guy didn't give the order of protection, and the guy killed the wife.
It happens.
And I get that. It's scary, but there has to be ramifications for these fault ones. And again, I don't believe, what is an order of protection? Seriously, if somebody wants to kill the person,
look, I always say,
it's a piece of paper.
I say this, if you wanted to take a shot at the president, you could do it.
Right.
You're probably not going to get away with it.
Right.
If you want to kill someone, you can kill them.
The paper's not going to stop it.
I had a case years ago, I don't know if you might have read about this in the paper. Guy calls me up on the phone and he says, my wife's cheating on me. I represented the wife. He didn't have an attorney. I said, get an attorney, I can't help you. Right? He hangs up the phone with me, drives to Bayshore, parks the car down the street, so he wasn't insane. They tried to use an insanity defense. Comes around, gets in the back door. I guess he had the key. Takes a knife, and he chases his wife and her mother, who was there to help her, out the front door, stabs them both to death. Kills them. Full of blood, goes in the house, says goodbye to his 8 and 10-year-old son. Then he calls Newsday, and he says, I did it because my wife's cheating on me. All right? It's a piece of paper.
Right.
All right. It doesn't. If you want to get somebody, it'll elevate it to criminal contempt.
Right.
Murder is murder.
Right. Exactly.
I've had cases when I was in the DA. I said to this woman, if I'm not here to talk you out of an order of protection, but if that happens, and the woman was killed.
Right. Well, to me,
it's just a piece of paper.
Well, I say if there's truly a risk and a danger of their life, why not send them to a gun training class and hand them a gun? That's going to protect
them.
Well,
they have to go through the proper licensing. They might get that.
But send them through. That's a piece of paper is nothing. And we give them out like candy here. All day long. Order protection, order protection. They don't mean anything anymore.
Do you remember Referee Burke from...
No. When you say Burke, you scare me. No.
Different
Burke.
He passed away. It was little guy that he would never sit. He'd always stand. He didn't have a robe. He wasn't a judge. And he was very good. He would refuse to give out an order of protection if he didn't feel that a prima facie case was made, or if there was no Article 8. You know, an Article 8, like you could have rape. That's not an Article 8.
Right.
You can get it in criminal court, but not in family. And he would have a very deep voice, and he'd say, "Counselor, where's the Article 8?" And he was
That's
notorious.
the way it should be done.
And I wish all the judges did what he did.
And if they did, Phil, don't you think right now when the police go to somebody's house with an order of protection,
it's a pro arrest.
but they know it's a joke too.
But they have no choice.
They have no choice but to arrest him. But most of them know.
Unless the guy's like in Florida, they're going to say, "Turn around, I got to cuff you."
I've been there, you know. But most of them know it's not. They don't fly up there and with the sirens. They think the person's getting murdered because they know most of these things are BS.
Right.
If they weren't like that, and you knew if somebody has an order of protection, it's serious. We're going to protect that person.
Right. I
look at
tried.
it
You talk about
seriously.
trying. I would say in the last couple of years, I had 3 trials involving orders of protection. I won them all. The jury listened to the facts. They didn't find that
This is so you got in criminal because you
court,
had right.
jury.
Right.
Jury. And the last one, there was even a video of the woman going to the ground, but the jury didn't believe the other side. And it's beyond a reasonable doubt. Right. It's not 50-50.
But what's the burden in family court? It seems so low.
Right.
What is? I mean, it just seems like we just give them out.
Clear convincing evidence. It's like a little more than half.
Right.
Well, it's
but
not
that's scary. Can you imagine you could lose your kids on a little more than half with no evidence, testimony? I believe the woman, and a person can be kept from their kids. That's scary, isn't it?
But you have to have it adjudicated somehow.
Have a jury and proof.
Right. Well, another thing, and we probably don't have enough time to talk about this, but how can we improve the judiciary?
That's another. Well, it's political.
I'm going to bring you back another time. We can talk about that.
Yeah, but listen.
You know me. On this show, you can speak your mind.
It's too political. It shouldn't. There's got to be some review process. I mean, here we have a bad judge. And what's our process? Well, when they're up for election, there is
a review process, but unfortunately, sometimes people can get through it because they're connected, or they have the right people in the corner.
Who does it? The bar?
The bar, yes, they have a committee. Screening, judicial screening.
The bar. That's the fox watching the hen house.
But that's what it is. Listen, with the time we have left, now you have a show called Backstory.
Yeah.
I've been on that show twice. Tell us a little bit about it.
So Long Island Backstory is a show that I created when I was going through my divorce. I realized that everyone kept saying, "This is crazy, Gary. This Judge McNulty is horrible." Go to the press. Go to what press? I go to Newsday. Go to Cablevision. Nobody wants to hear about the divorce. They don't want to get involved, which is another reason. But they don't want to get involved. They don't cover these stories unless there's a murder and it's a big. They don't want to cover my divorce case. So I ended up going on a couple public access shows, some radio shows, Jay Oliver's show, the News Radio 103. And I said, wow, you know what? First of all, it made me feel good because when I'm in court, I have my lawyer there most of the time and he's speaking for me. And it's very frustrating that I can't speak and the judge gets a different perception of who I am based on my lawyer. So I didn't like that. So it felt good for me, but it also, it upset a lot of the judges when they started hearing me speak out and shedding light on bad lawyers, bad judges, bad law guardians, and corruption. So I said, you know what? I'm going to do my own show because going on people's shows for 1 hour a month wasn't enough. So I started a show on Cablevision, Channel 20.
Now it's
called
Altice?
Long Island Backstory. Now it's Altice. It's on YouTube. Go to Long Island Backstory. And I have other litigants who the research that I see, have been abused by the system, by their spouse.
You give them a forum.
And I give them a forum to
I'm going to be on that shortly. I'm still waiting to get everything
we have
lined
the
up.
date. But and your show, because I like to educate people too, of course. That's really the most important thing. So I do have attorneys on, and as you know, your show's already run a couple times, and that'll run throughout the year. But it's also, your show is available on YouTube.
Right.
So people can put in Phil Jusino, Long Island Backstory, and they can get all the information that you gave, because that show is a half hour.
Right.
And a half hour of Phil Jusino's time is worth a couple $100.
And we always have a spirited debate. I like that. And again, this show is called Finding Common Ground. We had Phil, great guest.
I agree with
Gary
Jennifer.
Thoughts, governor, candidate. I got to have you back on for another show, maybe in a month or two, because there's a lot of stuff we didn't cover.
Right. Yeah, you can talk about this. Listen, this is people's lives.
It is. One last thing. I wrote a book called Divorce: A Practical Guide. In fact, Gary bought a copy.
And I gave it away to several people. We bought a bunch of copies, actually.
Carl bought a bunch. If you're going through a divorce, you can get it on my website, JusinoLaw.com. You can get it on Amazon.
I bought mine on Amazon.
You can.
I have Prime, so it didn't cost anything.
Okay.
It was cheaper than coming here.
But you can get it on JusinoLaw.com. If you have any issues of family law, I do criminal work. I'm a former prosecutor. 631-588-3155. See, I can do a call to action here.
And those two things tie into each other, by the way, criminal and family law.
They do. There's a lot of overlap.
And you know, on my show, I said, don't just use a family. If you're involved in an order of protection and the guy's never had an experience with criminal, don't use them because it is quasi-criminal.
Well, you know what it is? A lot of, I don't want to say one of the few, but not a lot of attorneys do both sides. I was in the, I don't know if you knew this, I'm one of the first attorneys in the domestic violence unit in Suffolk County, 89.
I didn't know that.
The producer is doing this, so we got to wrap up. Listen,
Called me out.
Gary, thank you very much
thanks so much
coming
for
on. I
having
really
me.
appreciate it. We had a great show tonight. This is Finding Common Ground. I'm attorney Phil Jusino. Gary Jacobs, he has backstory.
Long Island backstory, like
Guys,
us on YouTube.
go to YouTube, and if you want to see the shows that I was on, just Google Phil Jusino or Gary Jacobs and Phil Jusino, and you'll see those shows. Have a good night, everybody. Have a great weekend. Take care.